call this meeting to order. We are meeting in a webcast session. Bienvenue à la réunion numéro 12 du comité.
Welcome to the 12th meeting of the Science and Research Committee.
Welcome Ms. Vignelat, as well as Madame Lapointe. The Board of Internal Economy requires that committees adhere to the following health protocols, which are in effect until June 23rd, 2022. All individuals wishing to enter the parliamentary precinct must be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. All those attending in person must wear a mask, except for members who are at their place during proceedings. And please contact our clerk for further information on preventative measures for health and safety. As the chair, thank you always, because I will enforce these measures. La réunion d'aujourd'hui se déroule dans un format hybride.
Today's meeting is in a hybrid format, and we will have to follow the directives as put forward on the 5th of November.
Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You may speak in the official language of your choice. At the bottom of your screen, you may choose to hear floor audio or English or French. Un rappel que vous devriez adresser la présidence.
A reminder that you should address the chair in all of your interventions.
Your microphone should be muted, and the clerk and I will maintain a speaking order. To all our witnesses, welcome. This is about top talent, research, and innovation. Tonight, we're very pleased to welcome from the Canadian Association of University Teachers, David Robinson, who's the Executive Director. Welcome. From the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics, Dr. Robert Myers, Director. Welcome. And from Polytechnics Canada, Ms. Sarah Watts-Weinard, Chief Executive Officer, and Mr. Devin Blaskovich, who's the Policy Analyst. Each group will have 5 minutes. At the 4.5-minute mark, I will hold this yellow card, and you will know you have 30 seconds left to go. So we will begin. Again, welcome to our witnesses. And we'll begin with the Canadian Association of University Teachers. Mr. Robinson, the floor is yours for 5 minutes. Robinson. Mr. Robinson, you're on mute.
It's funny, I pressed unmute, and this is going to be the theme of the whole pandemic, is people are going to be walking around just mouthing each other for the next while. In any case, good evening, and thank you again. I would like to begin by acknowledging that I'm joining you this evening from the unceded and traditional territory of the Algonquin people. I'm very grateful for the invitation to be here tonight on behalf of the Canadian Association of University Teachers. We represent over 72,000 faculty, academic librarians, and professional staff at more than 120 post-secondary institutions in all provinces across the country. And as an organization, we're uniquely positioned to comment on the issue of the recruitment and retention of researchers and scientists in Canada, because our members are scientists and researchers themselves, and they're also the teachers and instructors training the next generation of researchers and scientists. Now, as everyone on the committee knows, it is the higher education sector that does much of the heavy lifting when it comes to Canada's gross domestic expenditures on research and development. And this is a strength that we can build on. The investments we make in university and college research equips us to better understand the social and natural world in which we live, so that we can tackle the many social, environmental, economic, and public health challenges we face. We can spur innovation and enhance the quality of life for all Canadians. In Budget 2018, the government made significant investments to boost basic research funding, but there remains more distance to go to close the gap identified by the government's expert panel on fundamental science. To continue to attract and retain academic research talent, we need to continue to invest in basic university research, because this is vital for scientific advancement that leads to innovation. While quick-to-market applications of science are appealing in the short term, Fundamental world-changing science and innovation is rarely predictable and most often emerges from longer-term and fundamental discoveries driven by scientific curiosity. Think of the 19th century Irish physicist John Tyndall, who asked the question, why is the sky blue? That simple question led Tyndall to the discovery of basic properties of light that paved the way eventually for the development of lasers and other innovations. More recently, think of the basic science that underpins the mRNA vaccine platform, or the discovery of properties of magnetism that was necessary to develop MRIs. So we have a strong foundation in the higher education sector, but there are cracks emerging that I want to focus on. One of the biggest is related to the ongoing shift towards precarious employment at our post-secondary institutions. As you've heard from others, full-time, tenure-track academic employment provides necessary stability needed for longer-term academic research. But by our estimates, more than a third of academic staff now, who are also highly educated researchers, are employed on short-term teaching-only contracts. Because it's teaching-only, it means their research potential is largely untapped. And even if they want to pursue research on their own time, obstacles remain. Without a tenure or tenure-track appointment, it's difficult, if not impossible, for contract academic staff to secure research grants through the federal funding agencies. Facing this uncertainty, many contract staff may abandon research altogether. Graduate students may question the attractiveness of the profession. And finally, I'd like to emphasize that we need good quality data about the entire academic staff workforce to fully understand its composition and challenges. But right now, Statistics Canada's University and College Academic Staff Survey, a survey that collects data on academics and Canada's research talent in universities, currently does not capture any information for contract academic staff, doesn't capture any information about those working at colleges, or any employment equity data beyond gender. Without this data, we simply don't know about the full composition of our academic research community or what barriers may exist that prevents the full participation of all. Expanding this survey would greatly assist us in understanding the academic research workforce, how to better support our researchers, and how best to harness their potential. So in conclusion, I just want to reiterate that the higher education sector is essential to Canada's research future. Compared to other OECD countries, it is our strength that we need to build on. Ensuring that academic researchers, those in early career stages or those already established, are afforded decent working conditions, job security, and equitable opportunities is essential if we are to attract and retain research talent. The federal government can play an important role in building upon this strength and foundation with clear action and support for academic researchers and for basic science. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Robinson. We appreciate your being here. We will now go to the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics, and we'll be hearing from Dr. Myers for 5 minutes, please. Dr. Myers? Dr. Myers, should we come back to you? You'd like us to come back. We will do that, sir. So with that, if it's okay to Polytechnics Canada, we will hear from you for 5 minutes, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Madam Chair and honorable members. I appreciate the opportunity to address you as part of this important study on how best to attract and retain science and research talent in Canada's post-secondary institutions. I'm the CEO at Polytechnics Canada, a not-for-profit association representing 13 research-intensive, publicly funded polytechnics and institutes of technology. Collectively, our members provide education and training to more than 370,000 learners each year. Polytechnic institutions across Canada mobilize state-of-the-art facilities, equipment, and expertise to deliver solutions to partners across industrial and social sectors, always in partnership and often with the help of student talent. As a result, institutions have a flexible and agile applied research infrastructure that adapts to the unique requirements of a partner and their project. To give you some context, last year, Polytechnics conducted more than 3,700 applied research projects with 2,600 industry partners. More than 23,000 students contributed to these projects, which included the development of more than 3,300 prototypes. Member institutions deployed nearly $39 million in federal funding and leveraged another $61.9 million from other sources. This essentially means they were able to secure $1.58 for every dollar that was invested by the federal government. When it comes to attracting and retaining research talent, it is important to understand how polytechnics and colleges differ from their university colleagues. Research is largely undertaken by expert faculty who bring industry experience to their teaching careers. Research is not built into the formula of an instructor's time. It is absolutely extracurricular. And this can pose real challenges because academics who participate in applied research need to be backfilled in the classroom. Attracting and retaining research talent comes with some fundamental challenges. Less than 5% of all federal investments in post-secondary research are allocated to this sector. So if you're a researcher, this balance of funding sends a pretty clear message that you should go elsewhere. Yet the type of research required by Canada's private sector, projects that support prototype development, commercialization, productivity improvements, and job creation is desperately needed. And this calls for a rebalancing of funding formulas. Applied research projects take a special kind of talent, people who understand industry challenges and develop pragmatic solutions in partnership. Yet, polytechnics do this work in a funding environment that's stacked against them. So for example, while the college sector is technically eligible under the Canadian Research Chair Program, allocations are based on funding received from tri-councils in the previous year. And the College and Community Innovation Program, which is the major and often only source of federal research funding, is excluded from this calculation. The evaluation of Canada Research Chair applications is built around a history of publications and participation on peer review committees, but neither is an outcome associated with college applied research. Further, the peer review process inherently favors university researchers. And when we've looked at why our members are successful in competitions, we found that at least one member of the application review committee had a college affiliation. So populating those research review committees with individuals with knowledge of the polytechnic and college sector space is essential to ensuring equitable participation. And so with challenges like that in mind, I have three broad recommendations for your consideration. The first is appropriate funding that needs to be available to support polytechnic applied research. The ecosystem is under dire financial pressures. And for example, the COVID Rapid Response Grant for colleges was unable to support 71% of eligible projects, leaving 164 partners behind. And while the number of partners on applications under the College and Community Innovation Program has steadily increased since 2016, it hasn't kept up. In 2020, 715 partners could not be accommodated due to grant constraints. Second, the peer review process must be adjusted to ensure the inclusion of people who have a solid understanding of polytechnic and college applied research. And finally, it's time to end the exemption across tri-council funding formulas of the College and Community Innovation Program. Now, well past its pilot phase, this program has become integral to delivering private sector innovation, and by excluding it, polytechnics and colleges have been pushed to the periphery of the research ecosystem. And I would say that's not a great place from which to attract top talent.
Ms. Watts,
Yeah,
Reinhardt,
thank you.
I'm sorry. I gave you a little bit extra so that you could get your recommendations in. Thank you. We will now
you.
go to Dr. Myers, and we hope.
We'll now go to Mr. Myers.
My apologies for before. I'm not sure what happened. In any event, my name is Rob Myers. I'm the director of the Perimeter Institute for Theoretical Physics here in Waterloo, Ontario. I'd like to start by thanking the committee for the important work you're doing in helping to shape Canada's future. A bit about Perimeter. We're an independent, nonprofit research center that's supported by a public-private partnership. We're not funded like universities. We're not eligible for most granting council programs. And while I have no particular ask today, I do agree with past witnesses who've shared the need for stable and continuing support for Canada's research community, and in particular, our talent pipelines. Perimeter has a single focus: to pursue breakthroughs in our understanding of the universe. Such breakthroughs are vital. One major discovery in physics can have profound long-term ramifications for all of science and technology, but it's a long game. Currently at Perimeter, we're the home to 25 permanent faculty, 22 faculty who are part-time and appointed with nearby universities, over 50 postdocs, and about 80 graduate students, again, registered with nearby universities. So when we are thinking about recruitment, we're thinking about recruitment at all of those levels. As you've heard, it's getting harder and harder to recruit talent for Canadian. Part of the strategy that we take is calculated risks on unusual thinkers. We look for bold researchers who are brilliant, ambitious, and adventurous. Most of them have multiple offers, and so we need to provide something special. To attract them, we provide opportunities and experiences to maximize their potential. No teaching requirements, a collaborative atmosphere, freedom from the publish and perish treadmill, great admin services, and the flexibility to capitalize on new research opportunities. And I must add that brilliant people want to work with other brilliant people. So there's a strong cluster effect here at the Institute and throughout the Quantum Valley in the Waterloo region. Let's look at some examples. On the first slide, we see the image just unveiled this morning of Sagittarius A star, the black hole at the center of our own galaxy. It's a very challenging picture to take, and Perimeter's Avery Broderick was instrumental in this effort. Avery, who's cross-appointed at the University of Waterloo, was attracted here because of the support we could offer in the form of a research community, computing resources, and resources for students and postdocs. In turn, Avery's given Canada a share in historic scientific achievements, and that in turn helps us attract more talent. On slide number 2, we see Kendrick Smith. Kendrick doesn't fit the usual categories that a university might look for. However, at Perimeter, he found the freedom to combine his talents in theoretical research, software engineering, and data analysis. His software innovations have transformed Canada's Giant Telescope into a global leader in radio astronomy.
Madam Chair? Sorry. The slides are finally up, or now they're not.
Okay. I see them on my screen. Interestingly, the same software that Kendrick developed is now used to stress test computer chips
Dr. Myers?
for a large manufacturer.
Okay.
Yep. Yes?
Good to go, Dr. Myers.
Okay. The last emblem that you see in the bottom corner there is to remind me that also during the pandemic, Kendrick applied his skills in collaboration with the medical community to develop a software package that helps us track COVID mutations. Moving to slide 3, we see Estelle Enac, originally from the Cameroon. She chose Canada over a very lucrative position with a US tech giant. She came here because she wanted to pursue her ideas with Canadian Roger Melko on the right, who leads the Perimeter Institute Quantum Intelligence Lab. Today, she's not only a top researcher producing innovative new machine learning algorithms, but she's founded a startup in Toronto based on her research. These are just 3 of the kinds of people that we've been able to recruit. In closing, I just wanted to note that, although I started by talking about the long game, it's interesting how that strategy has short-term payoffs that I've tried to illustrate with these examples. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Myers. We appreciate all our witnesses' time and effort. I know our members are eager to ask you questions. So with that, we're going to go to our members. We will begin with a 6-minute round, and we start with Mr. Williams tonight.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'd like to thank
Canada, and good evening, Sarah. It's good to see you. I enjoyed meeting with Cody and Devin back in March. You had some great statistics talking about how we can best support research and innovation at our post-secondary than our colleges and polytechnics. It's incredible to see the numbers you've presented. 1.58
Sorry,
$1.
Mr.
Oh, sorry.
Williams, we're sorry to interrupt. We're having translation issues.
No problem.
Sorry,
test,
my
1, 2.
apologies. Can we check that we have translation, please? All good. And we'll let Mr. Williams.
They're having their lunch.
Thank you, Ms. Vignola. Mr. Williams, the floor is yours.
No problem, Madam Chair. Thank you very much. So with less than 5% of all federal research grants, colleges manage to produce significant economic and innovative results. Do you know the amount that you're looking to increase in funding, if we're looking at it? And can you maintain the same ratio of the return on investment if you do get that funding?
Well, what I would say to you is that based on our conversations with NSERC and the Canada and Community, the College and Community Innovation Fund, that roughly 30% of all of the proposals that are put forward by the college and polytechnic community are successful. So I would say that's another 70% of projects that are being put forward that are not successful, not because they're not good projects, but because they're insufficient funds. And so I would suggest to you that we could look at an increase that would at least encompass that range of projects and opportunities that the colleges have brought forward before we ran out of space and opportunity and bandwidth.
Thank you so very much. And how do you have enough talent, or what's happening right now with your talent? How can you add talent to add to the funding if you had an increase?
I think it's important to recognize that the people who are undertaking projects for within the college and polytechnic system are faculty members and students within the system. So really there's no limit to the talent. It's what's available in every faculty, in every part of the institution, and within the student community.
That's great. Thank you. I'm so sorry, Sarah. I have so much time. I'd ask so many questions. This always happens, but thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, I know you engage with so many SMEs. You had a number you gave before across Canada. Where are they short on talent right now? So in terms of having new projects and prototypes developed, where are the SMEs short of talent, and what can we do to fix it?
What we're hearing and what our members are hearing from small and medium-sized businesses that they're working with is that they're short in talent in all areas. There's not one. So I would think it would depend on the sector, but certainly what we've been hearing is across the board.
Thank you so much. The University of Waterloo has previously told this committee that 75% of their software engineer grads are leaving to the U.S. Do you see the same thing with polytechnics and colleges across Canada? Are we losing graduates to the U.S.?
No, for the most part, my understanding is that while a portion of the graduates do go on to careers in other parts of the world, the majority of college and polytechnic graduates are being developed for the local labor market and are staying in the local labor markets.
Okay, thank you. This committee has heard about the commercialization. That commercialization is a valley of death, which our universities have a great deal of trouble bridging. Do colleges and polytechnics face the same challenges?
They don't face the same challenges because the challenges that they're addressing are the ones directly brought to them by businesses that have commercialization challenges that are then solved for those businesses, and the intellectual property remains with the business.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to ask a general question. What are the benefits of applied research versus more traditional research methods?
Applied research, I would say that the major benefit is that it is responsive to industry. It's responsive to the partners that come to the table, and therefore it's very pragmatic, and it really responds to those commercialization, prototype, some of the basic challenges in business, whereas maybe more foundational research is more fundamental, a little bit more exploratory. I wouldn't say one is better than the other. I would say they're both important. It's just that the way the funding is currently balanced is a lot more on foundational research than it is on applied.
Okay, thank you. And Madam Chair, if I run out of time, I'll ask you, Sarah, to submit this in writing, but you have a few seconds left. I know you talked about ending the Tri-Council exemption in the College and Community Innovation Program. I know you've recommended some changes. Would you have any other recommendations that you haven't mentioned? And second, do you need another source of funding besides the CCIP?
What concerns me about other sources of funding than CCIP is that that the way that the peer review is set up is not always, even if polytechnics and colleges are eligible, they're not always able to benefit because of the way the peer review process and the way that that eligibility happens in practice. So I would say that that's yes, we need more than CCIP, but CCIP is one of the places where colleges and polytechnics are eligible and right now get the vast majority of their funding because it's stacked in favor of that.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Watts-Reinert. I'll ask Mr. Williams, do you want that in writing, just to be clear?
Yes, please, Sarah. Please submit in writing, and we'll make sure it's included in the report. Thank you very much.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Okay, and now we will be going to Ms. Bradford for 6 minutes.
Thank you so much. Thank you to our witnesses for joining us tonight. I'll be directing my questions primarily to Mr. Myers. Thank you for coming back. I know that you did participate in our first study, and we're anxious to hear from you with respect to talent attraction and recruitment. Perimeter is a very unique research environment, and you have a unique approach. You stress that you aim for long-term breakthroughs, but you do also contribute to near-term competitiveness in Canada. Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. I mean, we are really a resource in many respects for the country, or I feel we are. You know, if we start on the side of academia, I mentioned the joint appointments that we make with nearby universities to try and draw talented researchers into the university system here. We also have affiliate memberships where it's a standing invitation for Canadian faculty interested in our research areas to come and visit and participate in the activities here. And you've really seen a knock-on effect in the Waterloo region that many young talented people come here now because they've heard about Perimeter and the exciting research. In the more practical side, it's also true that we're grooming talent with rare or mathematical and problem-solving skills that are really highly valued by the private sector. And so there are various ways in which we've seen our contribution flow out. Many of the young trainees here actually go on into the private sector in Canada and contribute to the economy by starting their own companies, or we have trainees who've gone on to Scotiabank, RBC, BMO, or other startups like Desire to Learn and Xanadu. And so we're really grooming people with a skill set that has broad application outside of theoretical physics.
Okay, thank you.
We actually try and encourage that by exposing the trainees here at Perimeter to the opportunities that lie outside of academia. And this takes the form of workshops and presentations by industry leaders, just so that they have an idea of what the possibilities are beyond the confines of, the theoretical research that we do. We also, I talked about the Perimeter Institute Quantum Intelligence Lab, which is a unique setting where, in fact, we have a Canadian startup, 1QBit. Our researchers are motivated by fundamental questions, but in that case, they're really playing in the same sandbox with ideas that have direct commercial application. And so 1QBit's employees are sitting next to our researchers, and they're able to share ideas and work together in some cases, let's say with students or postdocs, to produce interesting and practical results.
Okay, just wanted to ask you, so talent comes from all genders and backgrounds. What can we learn about Perimeter's approach to advancing women and underrepresented groups?
Well, that's a big topic. It's a strategic direction that we're trying to advance. We've had successes sort of with outreach to high school students at the master's level. We're essentially, we've reached gender parity in all our programs. But it's fair to say that at more senior levels, at the faculty level, we've got much more work to do. But we also have various programs like the Emmy Nether Fellow Program, where we've designed it to support early career faculty members, researchers in their careers. And that has also a spin-off effect in that we recently recruited Katie Mack, an outstanding cosmologist and science communicator from the United States. She's come here and now holds the Hawking Chair at the Perimeter Institute. In fact, we've got a grassroots effort called the PI Inclusive Platform that is working to advance inclusion, diversity, accessibility, equity, and accessibility across the entire spectrum of our efforts and activities here. One last note I might note is that at the board level, we have a board currently of 7 members, 5 of which are women. So our board is actually well ahead of the curve and a good role model for our faculty members.
Okay, that's great. Well, I'm sure your board is better for it. I have time for maybe one quick short answer here. In terms of international talent and even science diplomacy, some universities in Canada are currently looking to recruit talent from the Ukraine that has been disrupted by war. Is Perimeter part of that effort?
We have an effort going on, but I would say it's not to recruit, but rather to support Ukrainian scientists and in fact, all researchers that have been affected by the war. And in particular, we're working at the level of postdocs and graduate students and trying to provide them or trying to identify talent and provide
Dr.
them
Myers,
with a
I'm
safe
sorry
haven.
to interrupt. Perhaps,
Okay.
Ms. Bradford, would you like a written answer on that?
Maybe you could finish off. in
Okay,
writing.
thank you. A written answer, if you could, Dr. Myers.
I'd be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now going to go. We're so happy, Ms. Vignola, you're joining us, Madame, and the floor is yours for 6 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. My first questions will be for Mr. Robinson. In the most recent report of Count, your response post-pandemic, if normality means a return to the growing erosion of university contracts, leading to precarious existence, we should perhaps look at a new normal. Now, I understand that the phenomenon that you're describing is that of precarity of employment. What would be the impact on the recruitment and retention of staff and people in academia? And how do you think that we might attenuate the situation? What can the federal government do to assist so that the jobs are less precarious, or to increase your retention rate?
Yes, thank you for the question. It's a complicated, complex issue that's going to require, I think, greater cooperation between the federal government and the provinces, because obviously labor issues and labor law is a provincial jurisdiction, and education, the teaching component of education, is a provincial jurisdiction. And I think looking at what the root causes are in terms of the increasing casualization of employment is particularly important, given that, as I said earlier, this is a largely untapped resources. We have enormous amount of people who are highly qualified and trained to be researchers who can't get a job that recognizes their research ability. So I think this is like leaving a treasure buried in the ground, and we simply can't afford to do that. If you look at other jurisdictions, the European Union has developed a fixed-term directive on contract work that's been applied in the university college post-secondary sector. That's been effective in providing some security for that long-term research that's often required. But I think ultimately it's a funding issue too. One of the reasons why we've seen a growth in precarity is that institutions are squeezed in terms of overall funding. I think there's potential for a renewed federal partnership with the provinces in providing adequate funding for institutions.
Well, I'll follow up on the issue of financing, resourcing. I think it's been over 2 decades that the bursaries and scholarships have not been increased. And I believe that some of the recommendations that you've done in your pre-budget recommendations to increase scholarships and bursaries so that it would be part scholarship as grant and part as loan. And would you allow you to develop those skills that you need? What's been the ramification of this lack of increase over the years? And I'd like you to tell us about free-form pedagogy. I'm a former teacher, and I'd be interested to hear what your view is.
Okay, very good. Thank you again for the question. I think, yeah, obviously looking at bursaries and grants, particularly for people in that critical postdoctoral position where folks are looking for postdoc appointments, and providing adequate funding is absolutely important. One of the impacts, of course, in that bursaries and grants have not kept pace, certainly with the rate of inflation, and in some cases provide a below poverty line subsistence for our researchers, is that people graduate with enormous amounts of debt. And that's also then a factor. Do I throw my hat into the academic employment ring, where I may not get a full-time job, or I may have to work for several years and I got to pay off all this debt as well? So I think looking at the impact of debt on career choices is certainly important as well. But ultimately, if we want to make the career attractive, we have to provide the conditions necessary for people to do their work. And that's where people will go. I think Dr. Myers was kind of hinting, it's not just a money issue, it's also having a whole range of working conditions that are essential. And fundamental to that is, if you're going to engage in a kind of long-term research project, you need stability of employment. And that's where a lot of contract academic staff get stuck, is they get stuck in the routine of just taking on teaching contracts. The research falls by the wayside. Then when full-time positions do eventually come up, they're kind of left out of the mix because they haven't been research active in a number of years. So I think finding some ability to help people, particularly in that early career stage, to avoid that rut would be enormously useful.
Puis, de toutes ces recommandations.
Of all of the recommendations, which one do you think would be the better of the bunch? Which would be your priority?
It's hard to choose, right? So which child do I love more? Let me say, I think one of the things that we need to look at is the way in which governments, the federal government, can provide assistance to universities, colleges, and polytechnics across the country, not just on research, but also in the core operational funding. The government does provide assistance through the Canada Social Transfer.
Mr.
That hasn't
Robinson,
increased in some time.
Mr. Robinson, I'm sorry to interrupt. Madame Vignola, merci.
Thank you, Madame de Villiers.
To Mr. Cannings for 6 minutes, please.
Okay, well, thank you. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. I'm just going to stay with Mr. Robinson just to let him finish up on that theme because, as you said, it was a complicated thing, and I know that I think from some reports that CAUT have done, the actual percentage of university budgets that relate to salaries has dropped steadily over the years. And I'm imagining that's because they're spending more on other things, whether it's research or infrastructure. And I'm just wondering if you can comment on that, whether, and I think you were just beginning to touch on that, getting back to concentrating on the education aspects that are so important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the question. What has been falling in terms of expenditures by universities is spending on academic rank salaries. So one of the drivers outside of that has been expenditures on contract or non-tenure track positions. We've seen increases in administrative costs and increases in capital spending. But in terms of the core intellectual infrastructure of the university, you're right, the share of spending on those academic rank salaries has declined quite dramatically over the past 2 decades or so.
Thank you. And I just want to move to Dr. Myers to kind of stay on the same theme but Dr. Myers, you were talking about it not being entirely a salary-driven process of attracting talent. It's part of it is that brilliance attracts brilliance. I think is something close to what you said. And I also just wanted to make sure, just when we were having trouble seeing the slides at this end of the room, when you had talking about Dr. Kendrick Smith, I thought I saw a picture of Chime there, which is a facility in my riding. So I was happy to see that. I didn't know that. I'm happy to see researchers in other parts of the country use that facility, and hopefully maybe we'll see it as part of this committee work. But just to get back to that, you said you had 25 faculty, 20 and 22 part-time. Are those 25 faculty all at Waterloo, or do you have full-time faculty associated with a number of institutions?
No, the full-time faculty are here in Waterloo. 90% of them are affiliated or adjunct. For instance, I'm an adjunct faculty at the University of Waterloo as well, to allow me to work with students and teach courses. But the associates or the part-time faculty are half-time, roughly speaking, half-time here in our institute and half-time at a nearby university. And that's really spread across Southern Ontario. Our most far-flung associate is actually based in Halifax at Dalhousie University.
And how is that all? I guess I'm trying to get a handle on. You said it was an independent, not non-profit organization. So where do your core funding for the Perimeter Institute come from if it doesn't come from the regular government research funding sources?
We've had very generous support from both the federal government and the Ontario government. But a third of slightly more than a third of our funding comes from private philanthropy, from donors, foundations, etc. Currently at the federal level, we're participating in a new program that's designed to accommodate not-for-profits like ourselves, called you must know, the Strategic Science Fund, And so we're one of the organizations that's flowing into that program as well.
Okay, well, thanks very much. Just wanted to get that straight in my mind. And I'm going to move back to Mr. Robinson if I have a minute or so. And just, again, I'm when I worked at the University of British Columbia, I saw this beginning of that erosion of full-time research faculty teaching in undergraduate courses, biology 101, chemistry 100, that sort of thing. And now pretty much all those first-year courses are taught, or a lot of them are taught by contract teachers, basically, who are fully qualified academically to do research, but like you say, are not. I'm just wanting, Mr. Robinson, if you could comment on the effect that has on, the inspiration of young scientists who are going into first, second year university, who, I think would really benefit by being taught by researchers who are doing exciting stuff.
Yeah, I think contract academic staff are certainly highly qualified and highly capable of teaching. The challenge they often have is they're juggling a very high course load, because in order to make a living, you've got to take on an enormous amount of work. And so at UBC, you may have someone teaching a few courses at UBC and Simon Fraser and at one of the colleges, and trying to pull it all together. So I think the issue
Robinson,
there is ensuring people have enough time to do the work they need to do.
Mr. Robinson,
Yes.
I'm sorry. I really am. Mr. Cannings, thank you so much. And I hope the witnesses can see you really have an interested committee. They really want to hear from you. We're now going to go to our 5-minute round. And this is over to Mr. Tucker for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Mr. Robertson, of your membership, what percent is tenured versus non-tenured?
About a third of our membership would be off the tenure track. So that's just based on the membership counts that we get. Again, we don't have a really good picture because the one survey that we do of academic staff doesn't include contract academic staff.
Is there tension between the two?
Not really. I think there's 3 different kinds of contract academic staff that we want to talk about. One is people who are hired to replace someone who's on a sabbatical, a temporary thing, and know it's a temporary business. There's also professionals, architects or lawyers or doctors who teach a course once in a while as part of their professional commitments. But then there's a big bulk of contract academic staff who are hired to essentially do the heavy lifting of teaching within a university. In most cases, in most of our member associations, both the full-time and the contract staff are members of the same bargaining unit, negotiate the same terms and conditions of employment.
And just switching gears a little bit on funding, PhD students, usually sometimes the grants and funding is tied to how many PhDs we have in different institutes. And I've heard from PhD students where they graduate and there's very few openings, and they feel sometimes the institution, because of funding requirements, has so many seats. And unfortunately for them, when they're out, there's not that many opportunities, but the different institutes need to have those seats in order to get funding. Can you elaborate if that's a true snapshot of what's going on out there?
I think it's hard to really generalize, but sure. I think people graduating with a PhD today are facing a rather uncertain labor market if they're looking towards universities because of the increasing casualization of the workforce, the difficulty in getting grants. Getting that first grant is absolutely critical. Getting your postdoctorate grant is absolutely critical if you are interested in a longer term career within a scientific field, for instance. So I think looking at those issues, both in terms of stability of employment, but also opportunities in terms of funding, is absolutely critical.
And quickly, if you would take just a stab at, I know that we're missing data on the makeup of the membership, but if you took a stab at it, how many of your membership would be trained in Canada versus international?
That, unfortunately, I couldn't answer that off, and I couldn't even hazard to a guess. We obviously have a very international market, but I don't know the numbers for that. Sorry.
Thank you very much. And just switching gears to Dr. Myers about the Perimeter Institute. I'm very intrigued about how that got started. And a lot of times you talk about big tech companies, but they start as small tech companies. And a lot of times it's the innovative startups that take on some of the in technology, at least, some of the tech giants, and it's people that are doing things a little bit differently. And it sounds very similar to your story, but I'd like to hear, how did that get started?
The Perimeter Institute was really the brainchild of Mike Lazaridis. You may know him as the inventor of the BlackBerry. I mean, he really started he built with that the first modern cell phone, this device that we're all dependent on now. But he realized that, what he had there in a BlackBerry was really dependent on, blue sky research from 100 years ago. And he really saw the importance in investing in that. And that's really part of our DNA now. It's that long game that I talked about. We're looking for those transformative breakthroughs that are going to change the lives of our grandchildren's grandchildren. But as I was trying to illustrate, along the way, there are all of these, if you take brilliant people and apply them to tough problems, you get all these unexpected spin-offs. Which may take the form of, pictures of black holes, or it may take the form of a new startup using machine learning to optimize finance portfolios. And so there's a real investment that Mike made there, and a real vision that he had to carry us forward.
And you talk about far flung as Halifax, but geographically in Canada, what examples west of Manitoba institutes are you out in our neck of the woods?
With regards to the associate program, the farthest we went west, unfortunately, he's no longer there, but we worked for many, many years. We had an associate at the University of Victoria, actually. Unfortunately, I believe largely for personal reasons, he moved to the United States or to Minnesota recently. But at present, we don't have any associates there. We still have the affiliate program, covers all of the Western provinces. And we also work with various organizations such as Triumph in partnerships, for instance, to run a summer school.
Mr. Myers, I'm going to have to interrupt. Thank you, Mr. Tucker. And with that, we are going to go to Mr. Collins.
Thanks, Madam Chairman. And I'll start with Dr. Myers, if I could. Dr. Myers, you talked about the cluster effect, and brilliant people want to work with brilliant people. And that certainly, I'm assuming, was a challenge to foster during a pandemic when international travel is suspended, and I'm assuming international student numbers were down during the pandemic. So can you share with us how the pandemic impacted your ability to attract top talent from other parts of the world? That was a part of your opening there. You bragged about the successes in the past that you've had. And so can you share with us how the pandemic impacted that and what we can do to support maybe kickstarting the process you had in place prior to the pandemic?
We're very fortunate in that I work with blackboards, such as the one behind me. I don't have an experimental lab, so it was very easy for me and my colleagues here to take our work home and interact via Zoom. It did slow us down. We were successful, though, in recruiting at all levels. I must say, though, that the pandemic, the place that it hit hardest was in our master's program. Every year we have a class of about 20, 25 master's students that come for a one-year course. It's largely an international cohort. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, we were not able to actually bring them to Waterloo, and that was very difficult for them. We managed to do it online, but we made a special effort to bring the students here. We got them all here last September, and it really added a lot of energy to the Institute. I have to say, it was really a turning point in opening up again. The energy and the presence that they had here in the Institute. And so, yeah, I'll just close there. Those are my thoughts on the pandemic.
Thank you for that. Mr. Robinson, can I take you back to the issue that you raised in regards to the precarious employment? And I agree with you in that it is a dual responsibility. There's shared responsibilities between the provinces and the federal government in terms of supporting you and everyone involved on that issue. And so can I ask, are there provinces right now that have stepped up to the plate and have gone above and beyond maybe what you've expected in terms of trying to resolve the precarious employment situation? Or is it it's the issue is the same across all provinces currently? Can you tell me what the situation's like in that regard?
Sure, there are variations amongst the provinces. One of the variables is the level of funding, because obviously different provinces provide different levels of support for institutions. So in those provinces where there's higher public investment, we do see generally lower levels of casualization.
And who's doing it in your mind at this point in time?
I'd have to take a look at the actual data. I'd be happy to follow up with you on that. I don't have the most recent numbers, and again, it's hard for us to get a clear handle on the actual number of contract staff in each place. So we have broad trends, but when you look on an institution by institution basis, it's very difficult to tell.
Okay, thank you for that. To Ms. Watts-Reinert, can I ask you in your opening talked about how the public investment leverages private sector funding, and you gave us some statistics on that. How did the pandemic impact your ability to leverage private sector funding, and is it on the rise again at this point in time, or has it returned to the pre-pandemic levels?
I think that what we saw during the pandemic was definitely some difficulty with some small businesses in terms of coming up with the in-cash support, and the COVID recovery grants allowed for more in terms of in-kind support and less in terms of in-cash. But we found that the private sector community is looking forward to getting back and having the kind of support they need to get back on track after the pandemic, and their investments have bounced back.
Okay, great. I had the same question that Ms. Bradford had earlier, and that is in terms of Ukrainian support. Can I ask you, Ms. Watts-Reinert, are there efforts being made in your area or your institutions with facilitating those who are coming from the Ukraine?
I'd say that the colleges overall are doing a lot of work when it comes to thinking about how to support those coming from the Ukraine. However, I'd be hard pressed to give you a hard number on that. I think that there's a lot of support that I'm seeing among our members.
Thank you very much, Ms. Watts-Reinert, and thank you, Mr. Collins. I see we have 2 minutes left. Madame Vignola, 1 minute, and Mr. Canning's 1 minute. To be fair, Madame Vignola.
Merci beaucoup.
Madame Vignola. Mr. Myers, you said that you had a few special ingredients to draw and attract recruits. The quality of life in particular and the sunshine, but perhaps if you could give us a written answer and give us a good profile of what that is. And secondly, what could the federal government do to attract talent? And that's addressed to all the witnesses. What can the federal government do, not only for Quebec, but for the rest of Canada, all of Canada? Thank you all very much.
Are you asking each of the witnesses? Terrific. Each of the witnesses to answer that question. Merci. And Mr. Cannings, 1 minute to you, please.
Okay, thank you. I'll turn to Ms. Watts-Reinhardt. I think you were rushed at the end of your initial presentation there, and you had the 3 recommendations, and I know I didn't really catch all of the 3rd recommendation, so maybe if you could just expand on that for 45 seconds, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. The final one of the recommendations was really around the Tri-Council funding formulas and ensuring that the College and Community Innovation Program is not exempt from some of those funding formulas in the Research Support Fund and and programs like the Canada Research Chairs.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cannings and Ms. Watts-Reinhardt. We'd like to thank all of you. We thank you for your time, your effort, your expertise. You've all been very gracious, and we are all very grateful to you. We will say thank you, and we will suspend while we get ready for our next panel. Thank you to you all. Suspended. Can I call us back to order? Welcome to our witnesses. We are delighted that you can join us tonight on this study of top talent, research, and innovation. For this panel, we are very fortunate to have as an individual Dr. Kevin Smith, President and Chief Executive Officer, University Health Network. We welcome you. And I'll just say, since you represent the health sector, we'd like to acknowledge all that you've done through the pandemic and your life-saving service. From the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, we have Christian Fotang, Chair of the Board of Directors. Welcome. From the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council, we have Dr. Alejandro Adem, the President, and we have Dr. Danica Gusny, Vice President, Research Grants and Scholarships Directorate. We welcome all of you. We're looking forward to your testimony. Each of you will have 5 minutes. At the 4.5-minute mark, I will raise this card, which lets you know you have 30 seconds left. And we aim to be fair here. So with that, Dr. Smith, we'll begin with you. The floor is yours, and welcome.
Sorry, muted. Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the members of this distinguished committee. First, I'd like to commend the committee for focusing on how best to support research and innovation in Canada and to attract and retain top talent. This is an issue we are charged with daily at the University Health Network. My name, as the chair introduced, is Kevin Smith, and I have the privilege of serving as President and CEO of UHN, Canada's largest and most prolific research and training hospital. UHN has recently been recognized as a top 5 in the world hospital by Newsweek. I should note with some pride that we're the only hospital among the top 10 hospitals identified by that organization with a universally funded system where all have equal access to outstanding care that is informed by and improved through research. As you know, one of the greatest challenges facing hospitals is a shortage of providers. University Health Network is also Canada's only hospital that has embedded within it a health professional training school known as the Michener Institute of Education. And research should include pedagogical or educational research, an incredibly important part of the future of Canada's training programs. Such a model, in our opinion, offers a national opportunity for the development of new professions, including extender professions that might help meet the needs and incredible demands placed upon clinicians for the rapid delivery of clinical care in order to catch up from COVID, coupled with a growing and aging population. Fully 80% of Canada's health research is undertaken by research hospitals in Canada, 80%. This is often missed by many and is a very important fact for the committee. Of course, our university partners are essential to research and scholarship, but it is the clinical environment, research hospitals, and especially those with major research programs and ecosystems that are very much the engine of this machine. At UHN, we're very proud and fortunate to have completed almost $500 million of research in the last year. That is mostly money that was spent on salaries of research staff, technicians, technologists, support staff, and of course, the scientists themselves. This investment creates thousands of high-quality jobs and a high quality of work life. Each day, we work at retaining and attracting the very finest minds to research and clinical care. Because we are a leading organization, each and every day, we see attempts made by other world-leading organizations to recruit away our very brightest and best. Thanks to the Government of Canada, we've been able to stand our ground for some time. We've been able to keep those who are in the greatest demand in Canada. We've been able to attract stars, and we've been able to see the world's leading organizations come to Canada looking to attract those stars as well. However, COVID and significant investment by other nations has changed everything. We are increasingly struggling to do so, especially at a time when investigators are thinking about quality of work life and access to needed resources. Presently, Canada spends approximately 1.5% of its total healthcare budget on health research. This is a very small amount when compared to leading economies of the world, If we wish to maintain our standing in a vibrant research ecosystem, we must consider additional investment. Remember that the limited investment truly pays off. The research sector employs 482,000 Canadians and contributes over $7.8 billion to Canada's GDP. The current research landscape using the Tri-Councils and the CFI has served Canada well for many years. That having been said, numerous reports and suggestions have been put forward about how we might better structure the system. I won't spend my limited time today talking to you about structure, as I believe the structure alone will not significantly advance Canada's competitiveness. Investment is truly what's needed. This investment, whether in infrastructure, both physical or cyber, direct operating grants for researchers, or targeted initiatives, all stimulate researchers to ask the most important questions. Researchers are struggling since inflationary pressures in laboratories are increasing at approximately 10% per year, while the CIHR budget for trainee and investigator initiated awards has not increased at all. Canada has been a player on the global stage and must remain strong. This means ballparking our estimates in research and investments against other leading research jurisdictions. Unfortunately, Canada has fallen behind. The CIHR budget is approximately 45 times lower than that of the National Institutes of Health in the United States. That's a 4 to 5-fold per capita difference in investment in health research. That means keeping top talent is more at risk than ever. Canada's science is world-class, it's affordable, it's competitive, it directly benefits the lives of Canadians. It attracts industrial investment and highly qualified jobs. Investing in Canadian research talent.
Dr. Smith,
Yes.
I'm sorry to do this. I have to be fair. I know
Totally.
our members are going to ask a lot of questions, and
Yes,
we
I'm
thank
sure we'll
you.
get to others.
We
Thank
thank you so much. We will now go to the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, and Mr. Fotang, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Thank you, and good evening, Honorable Chair, esteemed committee members, and fellow witnesses. I would like to begin my statement by acknowledging that I speak to you today from Amiskwichi-Waskahigan, or Beaver House, what is now called Edmonton on Treaty 6 territory. My name is Christian Fotang, and I'm the chair of the Canadian Alliance of Student Associations, and I'm also the Vice President External Affairs for the University of Alberta Students' Union. CASA is a nonpartisan, not-for-profit organization that represents over 275,000 students at colleges, polytechnics, and universities from coast to coast to coast. Through a formal partnership with the Union Étudiante de Québec, we are a trusted national student voice, and together we represent 365,000 students at all levels across Canada. First, I'd like to thank the committee for the recognition of the importance of student perspectives in federal research funding and innovation. Innovation, according to the Science, Technology, and Innovation Council, is more than research and development. It is transforming knowledge into products and services that Canadians and others in today's global marketplace need, want, and will pay for. As I pursue my biology degree at the University of Alberta, I'm no stranger to the importance of research and innovation. The state-of-the-art research facilities at the U of A have allowed me to use the theories and skills that I learned in the classroom and apply them in real-world practical research. This is thanks to the bursaries, grants available to students that made world-class research at a U15 institution accessible to a kid from a single-parent household like myself. Many other researchers like me rely on grants to attend post-secondary education, and specifically, the Canada Graduate Scholarship provides government-funded research grants to grad students who help keep Canada at the forefront of industry. Though I myself am not a graduate student, I have heard from graduate students how important this funding is. The Tri-Council agencies that distribute the Canada Graduate Scholarships provide over 3,000 graduates and postdoctoral students with $17,500 in grants each year to conduct research at dozens of institutions across Canada. This funding is esteemed, but the reality is, with the cost of rent rising, groceries getting more expensive, and the rising cost of post-secondary education, in many provinces, $17,500 over 12 months is just not enough. Students continue to be concerned about how to afford their studies. This financial insecurity can make research opportunities inaccessible for many students. Instead of focusing on academic research and innovation, their primary concern becomes trying to afford staying in school. In fact, grants for these student researchers have presented a shrinking portion of the Tri-Council budgets over the past several years. Since 2015, the government has made significant reinvestments in Tri-Council budgets, allowing their overall funding to catch and even exceed previous cuts made to the program since 2010. However, funding for the graduate scholarship investments have not kept pace with other investments being provided to research granting agencies. At its peak, student scholarship represented 16.9% of the Social Sciences and Humanities Research Council funding. But for the 2019 and 2020 award year, student scholarship had fallen to 13% of the SSHRC budget. This downward trend has also only appeared in the other two agencies of the Tri-Council. ANSERC student scholarship funding has gone from its peak of 13.3% to 8.3%, and CIHR student scholarship has fallen from 6.3% to 5.5% of the Council's budget over the same period. CASA estimates that the accumulated gap in funding for student grants since 2011 is $120 million. This is at the detriment of student researchers who rely on these grants to pay rent, buy groceries, and get to and from school while conducting their research as mentioned above. The targeted scholarships and fellowships for promising Black student researchers in Budget 2022 are important steps in the right direction. However, these proposed investments still do not address the gaps in the Canada Graduate Scholarship Program. And this student research funding for students is a fundamental solution to this committee study today on top talent and research and innovation. This is why CASA has called on the Government of Canada to increase funding for student scholarships programs by $120 million on a recurring basis, thus reestablishing the importance of student scholarships within the overall envelope of the Tri-Councils. In closing, as Canada continues to invest in innovation, it is important that Canada also invest in the student researchers tasked with solving science's greatest challenges and creating the technology that will advance Canada as a leader in research and innovation. I look forward to answering your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Fotang, and we wish you continued success as you pursue your degree. Thank you for your testimony. We will now go to the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council. The floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Alejandro Adam. I am the president of the Natural Sciences and Engineering Research Council, commonly referred to as NSERC. Thank you for this opportunity to appear before you for a second time. I am pleased to be joined today by Dr. Danica Kuzny, NSERC's Vice President for Research Grants and Scholarships, with whom I will be sharing my time. I wish to acknowledge that I am living and working on the traditional ancestral land of the Musqueam peoples. Du point de vue d'un organisme de financement de la recherche, les talents et les fondements.
Talent, from the perspective of a research funder, is the foundation that underpins the health, well-being, and economic success of our country. People trained in the natural sciences, engineering, power discovery, drive innovation, and found companies that create well-paying jobs.
Challenges like climate change, and to keep pace with technological advances in areas like AI and quantum, Canada must focus its efforts on training, attracting, and retaining the best and the brightest. As someone who studied in the United States and then built a career in Canada, I can attest to the fact that Canada's strong research ecosystem is a real asset when it comes to attracting talent. However, as other countries double down on their investments in science and research, Canada must keep pace. Nous devons également rester fidèles à nos valeurs.
We must also remain true to our values, breaking down barriers to ensure that the next generation of talent is inclusive and reflects the diversity of this country. We must recognize the role of the research ecosystem when it comes to reconciliation with the Indigenous peoples and to create meaningful, accessible opportunities The pool of talent supported by NSERC and the other granting councils plays a critically important role in powering research in Canada. Simply put, students and postdocs are the engine of the research enterprise. Participation in research stimulates key growth mindsets essential for the success in the labor market. Skills as critical thinking, curiosity, experimentation, and teamwork, just to name but a few.
Trainees and fellows in two ways: directly through scholarships and fellowships, and indirectly via grants to researchers who hire trainees. NSERC Discovery Grant Award holders contribute 70% of their grant money to compensate students working on their research projects. This federal funding plays a critical role in supporting students and in the overall talent ecosystem. I would like to emphasize the importance of award values of granting council scholarships and fellowships. The fact is, the award values offered by the three granting councils set the bar for student compensation provided by post-secondary institutions through research stipends and other funding sources. In a way, the value of awards offered by the granting councils dictate compensation for trainees and fellows across the country. It is also a fact that the value of these awards has not changed substantially in a generation. For example, NSERC's doctoral award has remained almost constant at $21,000 a year since 2004. Considering a mean inflation rate during this period of 1.85%, this means the effective award value has dropped by 42%. This poses a real challenge to students when it comes to covering their basic costs of living. Furthermore, we know that disadvantaged students are more likely to accumulate debt during their undergraduate degree. These same students may find it challenging to continue on to the master's and PhD level program if financial supports are not considered viable. The same situation holds true when it comes to attracting talented international students. However, at the present time, eligibility restrictions also play a role. Nous sommes conscients de ces problèmes.
We are quite conscious of these issues and with other fellow granting agencies are working to find appropriate solutions. In the immediate term, we're very pleased with the new funding announced in Budget 22 to provide increased support for Black student researchers. We're also carrying out an important evaluation of talent support programs in order to add to the evidence base that exists.
Under the direction of the Canadian Research Coordinating Committee, we are developing a tri-agency talent strategy.
Dr. Gusny, I'm sorry.
All good, Dr.
It's the
Duncan.
worst part of this job is doing this to all of you. Thank you for all the wonderful testimony. Our members are really eager to hear from you, and so we're going to start our 6-minute round of questions, and with that, we begin with Ms. Gladue.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for appearing today. I'm going to start with Dr. Smith. You talked about the things that the Government of Canada is doing to help. I guess I would ask, what things should they do in addition to help? And maybe you could finish some of the comments that you ran out of time for.
Sure, thank you. My apologies for my poor time planning. So I think at the end of the day, as my colleagues have talked about, it really is additional investment. And whether that's direct investment or investment through taxation credits or investment, as a number of our philanthropic donors have been lobbying for, creating donation opportunities for securities. So I think, as all of my colleagues have stated tonight, it really is about getting those resources, more of them to more researchers to answer good questions and keep them in Canada, particularly as we see more and more attempts to recruit our very best students and recruit away our very best faculty members.
Yeah, and I took your point very well that the inflation rate is huge, and so we're not keeping up, we're not increasing, and then we're not even compensating for inflation, so I think that was a really good point. Mr. Fotang, I know we've heard from multiple witnesses that really, at the end of the day, it's the salary that we're paying for our doctoral students. It hasn't changed. It's not enough. It's not competitive with other places. Would you agree with that? And are there other barriers that you think the Government of Canada should be helping to remove?
Thank you for the question. So CASA does not represent doctoral students, so I can't comment on that. I'm sure there are witnesses who would be best for that. But in terms of barriers, I hate to sound like a broken record, but it comes down to the fact that by investing in these scholarships and by providing that's the way you increase access. Right now, students are putting their focus and time in just trying to stay in school rather than, focus on their research. And so by providing that opportunity through these grants and bursaries and scholarships, that's, I think, how we best eliminate those barriers.
Excellent. And then same question for Dr. Guzny.
Great. Thank you so much for the question. And I do have to agree with my fellow witness that indeed raising the value and the duration of the stipends for both the postdoctoral, doctoral, and at NSERC, we also have an undergraduate student research award. Raising all of these and the master's level, of course, would go a long way in terms of attracting and retaining and removing barriers to those for access in graduate studies.
Excellent. And Dr. Smith, which countries are the ones that are trying to steal away our brightest and best? And what is it they're offering so that we know what the benchmark is?
Right. So I would say most. So when I look to those in the United States, the United Kingdom, all parts of the European Union, all advanced economies recognize, I think, that Canada provides outstanding research training, has outstanding students, and as a result, we're seeing very high quality publications and citations, high quality outputs in areas such as patents. The area that we most suffer is the United States. And where, in addition to compensation issues, it's startup issues. So as our chair knows, with organizations like CFI, infrastructure and ensuring that young investigators, mid-career investigators, and even later career investigators have the resources that are required not only for the students, but also for the laboratory to truly be cutting edge is an essential ingredient for us to retain them.
What type of infrastructure are we talking about? I mean, is it lab test equipment? Is it,
Yeah.
Could you elaborate again?
So I would say from space, actual research space, laboratory space, and in downtown Toronto, as an example, we're dramatically short. Daily, we actually have to turn away private sector colleagues who would be interested in renting wet lab laboratory space just to be juxtaposed to UHN and U of T. In addition to that, we can't ignore cyber infrastructure. For too long, I think we've focused on physical infrastructure as an important component. It is, but cyber infrastructure, and my colleagues from NSERC, I'm sure, will comment on this. The big data sets, data lakes, cyber infrastructure, cyber protection, very expensive, but absolutely essential research infrastructure for us to truly play on the competitive landscape and attract industry to actually establish businesses here, jobs here, and remain here, as opposed to take Canadian science and exploit it elsewhere for jobs and opportunities.
Very good. And Mr. Fotang, in terms of students being left with a lot of debt, are there recommendations that you would make to the government of things that we could do to help with that?
Of course. So one of CASA's asks this year was maintaining the doubling of the Canada Financial Student Grant. So it was doubled from 3,000 to 6,000. And that has been immense for a lot of students in being able to, just make it through their semester tuition, covered tuition, rent, groceries, you name it. But there are also other things, for example, like mental health has been a real crisis for students. And we've also advocated for a national strategy across the country to make sure that, students university can be a very competitive area, and so that mounts pressure on students. So making sure that there's supports for them so that they're taking that energy and time into their classes and not just flunking because they have anxiety or depression or any other such of those concerns.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being so prompt, Ms. Gladue. Thank you to you both. We will now go to Monsieur Lauzon for 6 minutes, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Thank you, Chair. I'd like to, first of all, thank the witnesses who have appeared today for this important study. I'd like to add one important point in this report, because we're finishing hearing from witnesses shortly. And I'd like to add a comment on the importance of mental health. We're talking about keeping our students studying. We know that money is always an issue, but I'd like to talk about mental health. Perhaps Mr. Fotang would like to respond. In an inquiry in 2018, 2 years before the COVID, the Federation of Quebec Students conducted a survey. And the results, 58% of the student population, university population, cited a very high level of stress and anxiety. Do you think that these 24,000 students that were surveyed, does that really represent, do you think it's representative of studentship in throughout Canada? Do you have other studies that are similar?
I haven't had the chance to look at the reports that you're mentioning, but CASA has conducted similar surveys, and we have gotten similar results, and I'd be happy to follow up with you and provide some of those results and reports.
C'est important. It's very important for us to put those data in this study. Okay. Est-ce que vous avez entendu parler?
Have you heard? Well, do you have experience yourself, or you shared with your students, perhaps, on mental stress? First of all, you know, you're far from home. You have difficulties financially. Have you felt psychological stress yourself and among your students?
From the individual perspective, this has been a very tough year, tough 2 years really, with the impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, and I know that's impacted a lot of sectors, but students especially. I think learning from home and the virtual environment has really been tough, and that sense of loneliness and not being able to connect with people in person. I know as we start to open up again and have in-person classes, that's been tremendous, I think, for a lot of students' mental health. And there's also instances of our international students too, who for many didn't qualify for CERB or CESB, and they're far from home, and all these things compiled have had huge effects on their mental health. And again, that sense of anxiety, depression, it's really had an impact.
Okay, merci.
Thank you.
Gosney and Dr. Smith, with the same issue. Une étude de la presse de février.
A study appearing in La Presse in February indicates 25% of external researchers in medicine have to one student out of four, and I found the statistics just terrible. Today's students are going to be doctors of tomorrow and researchers of tomorrow. So as the president of the University Health Network, what is your familiarity with this issue?
Thank you very much for the question. Very important question. It is among the top issues that we're working on and with, excuse me, both with learners as well as faculty members. Our nursing colleagues in particular have identified burnout and stress as a particularly risky issue. Academic nursing, of course, we're dramatically short. At University Health Network at the moment, we have an opportunity for 600 nursing hires. They just simply aren't available. In addition, we're seeing a few more people within the health professions and the research professions not advising their children to undertake studies in these domains. And I think that's most concerning of all. They have particularly been exacerbated through COVID. I would say all of the universities and academic hospitals have in place programs to support the psychological well-being of learners and faculty members. But as we're learning, the system has been overwhelmed. So we have a great backlog, not only as we often hear in the media on areas like surgery, but mental health and the importance of mental health, and frankly, investment of research dollars into the mental health of the provider community and the research community would also be a very, very welcome initiative.
Merci beaucoup pour la réponse. Mais...
Well, thank you very much for that answer. The Canadian government created Feel Better Canada, or Be Well Canada, to encourage Canadians to take better care of themselves. Do you have tools that you can offer to any requests, either a hotline or specific programming?
We do. One of the tools we've been using is actually a wellness survey for clinicians and researchers, working with the Mayo Clinic in the United States. I'm a bit worried to tell you the rates at which we see the responses indicating high levels of burnout and significant mental health distress are above 80%, 80%. That having been said,
okay, I just have a quick question before we end.
Monsieur Lauzon, perhaps you could ask for the answer in writing.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask. Can you give us all
Certainly.
the information? You can send it to us, make sure that we have in the report.
It'd be my pleasure.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Monsieur Lauzon, and thank you to both our witnesses for talking about mental health. And we thank both of you for sharing what data you can. We will now go to Madame Vignola for 6 minutes.
Je vais commencer avec Monsieur.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to begin with Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, I'm a great admirer of the various awards and recognitions that you've earned and your decision to stay here, work here in Canada. I'm sure it wasn't an easy decision. What keeps you here in Canada? You must have had some very interesting and attractive offers from abroad. Why are you staying here, and what can we do that such exceptional talent as yours stay in Canada and don't go to the UK or anywhere in Europe or anywhere else for that matter, particularly in Silicon Valley and our southern neighbors? What can we do to keep successful people here in Canada? Perfect. We're very pleased to have you. My next question would be for each of the witnesses, if you have an opportunity, one after the other, to respond. If not, in writing, as was suggested by the chair. Yes, mental health is very much on our minds, and I know to what point it's difficult for a student to concentrate on his studies when he doesn't know or she doesn't know if he's going to be able to pay the rent or if he'll have to negotiate the rent. often we seek perhaps to double the amount of the scholarships and grants, bursaries, as did Mr. Fontaine said. Would that do anything to help the mental health of our students in the long term?
Yes, so yeah, thank you for the question. And affordability does play a huge role in the mental health aspect for students. It's, enough that they're worrying about, their courses or being lonely or overwhelmed. But part of that feeling of overwhelmingness is because they don't know where they're going to get, the money to pay for their tuition, to pay for their rent, to pay for their groceries. So when we talk about investing in those scholarships, that's exactly what it's doing, right? It's taking care of that burden that students are having to put themselves in right now.
Perhaps if I could add one comment, it would be we are seeing significant increase in graduate student numbers, as our NSERC colleagues will, I'm sure, confirm. Yet we are not able to provide them access to the same resources. So just as in our grants, we are saying no to many remarkable learners and many remarkable research opportunities. So absolutely increased investment would improve the situation. Do I think it will improve the mental health of individuals? Probably not. I suspect that that's going to be both a cultural and a service change that's required. I think we are in the throes of trying to make that happen, but we still within the sciences see resistance to identifying mental health because of stigma, and we all need to work at encouraging scientists and learners to come forward when in need of mental health.
And I'll just add that I myself, I had about 40 students and postdocs during my career as a professor. And definitely taking care of the precarious nature of the graduate student life is very important for the stability and the well-being of those individuals if they're fully going to realize their potential in research. So absolutely, that's important, and not only in the mental health, but also in their well-being as human beings.
And I would also just echo the comments made by my fellow witnesses. I think that this increase would impact the mental health and certainly support the students much more effectively than they are now.
Thank you all. And Madame Vignola, merci beaucoup. And now we will go to Mr. Cannings for 6 minutes, please.
Okay, well, thank you. Well, I'm going to stick with this the line on I guess I must say I'm just flabbergasted when I found out a few months ago, I think it was when I was meeting with CASA or perhaps another group, that these grants and scholarships that support our graduate students, and not just our graduate students, these are our best graduate students, the ones that actually qualify for these grants and scholarships, that those values hadn't changed since 2003. And I'm just, how does this happen? It's not just the cost of living has gone up since then. Tuition has skyrocketed since then. And now we have students trying to live on $17,000 a year or $20,000 a year, well below poverty line, well below minimum wage. These are, I was a grad student. It was a full-time job. And I don't know, I guess I'll ask Dr. Guzny, why has this not come to anyone's attention at the Tri-Councils that, these students are suffering, whether it's hard on their mental health. I know it's hard on them just to get enough money for groceries, or, now they have to work part-time or they have to go into debt. Why did this happen, and how can we fix it as soon as possible?
Thank you so much for your question. Certainly, this has come to our attention during our consultations for our strategic plan, NSERC 2030. One of the key themes that we heard was an increase for the value and duration of these awards. Many folks commented on the fact that the awards hadn't been increased in the time frame that you mentioned. And so the recommendation really was to increase a greater number and a greater value and a greater duration of these awards. I would say in terms of why this hasn't been redressed, there has been a constant over time reevaluation of the balance between the number of awards we offer and their monetary value, and it's a zero-sum game. In 2015, we did increase the value of the postdoctoral awards from $40,000 to $45,000, and last year we did increase our portion of the undergraduate student research award from $4,500 to $6,000. We've also increased the duration of the awards to 3 years instead of 2 years. And following Budget 2019, we did receive 600 new Canada Graduate Scholarships. We've also invested in paid parental leave, increasing that leave for students from 6 months to 12 months, which was an investment. So that said, we are aware certainly that for our NSERC postgraduate scholarships and the other Tri-Council funding, students are facing increasing financial hardships, and that the rising cost of living does present a significant barrier to pursuing the graduate level scholarships. We are committed to working very closely with the 2 other federal granting councils and with the research community to figure out ways that we can better support these trainees. Thank you for your question.
Okay, well, thank you. And I hope we fix it by 2023 and not by 2030. So, and I just want to turn to Mr. Fotang to talk about something. I don't know if anyone has actually mentioned this, and that is, this study is about attracting the best and brightest. And I'm just wondering if, Mr. Fotang, you can comment on perhaps attracting international students and the difficulties they face, whether it's funding or even the immigration limitations of getting here. So it's something I don't think we've heard anything of yet in this study.
Yes, in terms of attracting international students, CASA has long been advocating for, the elimination of applying for a work permit, a separate work permit on top of study permits. This has been a huge barrier to access for international students who are trying to apply for practicums or co-ops, and it's the processing time does also sometimes take a very long time, and it's quite costly and expensive for them. Additional things like you mentioned, awards and supports right now, a lot of international students tend not to qualify for or receive, awards or scholarships from whether it's at the provincial level or federal level from governments. A lot of international students didn't qualify for, CERB or CESB. So these are some of the things that we can do to recruit and retain international students in terms of that advantage that Canada can provide.
You mentioned like co-op type options. International students can't access those if, so many academic programs have a co-op aspect to them. So international students, because of their visa requirements, can't access all of those?
They can, but they will have to sometimes apply for separate a work permit on top of that study permit. And to shed some light on this, for example, like in certain provinces, work integrated learning opportunities have been this huge push at the provincial level. And again, these are some of the things where investments are being made, but it feels like international students aren't being included or like recognized because of the fact that, there's that extra barrier that they have to face that domestic students don't.
Okay, thank you. I see the yellow card, so I'll cede my time. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Cannings, for being so generous. And thank you to all the witnesses. I hope you see the interest from this committee. We're now going to go to the 5-minute round, and we begin with Mr. Soroka. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and to all the presenters tonight. Mr. Fotang, I think you had said that you didn't read the Canadian Alliance Association's report on investing in innovators, but I was wondering if you could still answer a question they had highlighted as one of their recommendations to enhancement and experiential learning opportunities and creating opportunities for international exchange of ideas was recommended. How do you think this situation has potentially changed between 2017 when the report was written to now in 2022?
Sorry, you'll have to clarify. I didn't quite get that, and I'm not sure. Can you repeat the question?
Okay. The Canadian Alliance of Students Associations published a paper called the Investing in Innovators, CSA Vision for Research and Innovation in the Post-Secondary Education. It was highlighted that the enhancement of experiential experiential learning opportunities and creating opportunities for the international exchange of ideas was recommended. How has the situation changed between 2017 to now in 2022?
Okay. I don't have an answer for you right now. I'll probably be able to provide a written report for you, but what I can add is that with internet, kind of bring it back to international students, it's about providing those opportunities that they need to, access work experience.
Thank you for that, Dr. Guzny now. Regarding your plan for 2030 and that, I was just wondering, now that with COVID and if there's had to make adjustments, if there were any flaws that you found in the tri-agency talent strategy and what procedures are in place to potentially counter this?
Was this addressed to me? I didn't hear the first part.
Addressed to Dr. Guzny.
Oh, okay. Narika, please.
Oh, I apologize. Could you repeat the question? What flaws were found in the CRCC talent strategy, and what would we do to redress those?
Yes.
So the CRCC talent strategy is based in terms of empowering the students. So it's a student-centered, data-driven, and evidence-informed strategy. And we have it set around pillars of equity, diversity, and inclusion, Indigenous reconciliation, internationalization and student mobility, better harmonization across the tri-agency, and preparing students for alternate career paths outside and beyond academia. So with that said, that overarching framework, I think, remains relevant through the course of the pandemic and going forward. That said, themes around, embracing networking and enhancing interactions virtually, that's coming into play. Better support to students, certainly the stipend increases is a relevant theme that's coming through, even more so because of the impact of pandemic, and recognizing, of course, that matters of equity, diversity, and inclusion within our academic homes, and particularly in the students, may have been exacerbated, and we know, in fact, has been exacerbated because of the pandemic. So while these themes were captured at the beginning, they've been made more prominent throughout the course of the pandemic. Thank you very much for your question.
Okay, as well, Dr. Guzny, are you familiar with other countries that have adopted this strategy? If so, which ones are using it, and can you share how it has turned out for these other countries?
Thank you very much for that question. There are several countries internationally that we have been looking to in terms of environmental scanning. What I can do is provide the clerk with the information on these scans so that everyone has a fulsome report on that.
That would be very much appreciated, because there's a lot of interest in that, because that's our biggest challenge right now, is trying to find areas. I know you also brought up about, the funding and making sure that these postdoctorate students are paid adequately. But besides the adequate funding, is there any other opportunities or challenges that are facing these students?
Thank you. Yes, so certainly the funding remains top of mind, and that's the biggest issue. But there are, of course, matters of equity, diversity, and inclusion in terms of barriers and access to the program. So ensuring that policies, program design, peer review, and evaluation are all barrier-free, and that we are reviewing these processes continually to ensure that we're not increasing or creating new challenges is a very important part as well. Thank you.
I'm not, how many seconds am I?
9 seconds.
I think I will forgive my time.
That's very generous. Thank you, Mr. Soroka. And now, thank you, Mr. Soroka, for your questions. And now we will go to Mr. McKinnon. Or have we?
McKinnon, it's your turn, sir.
I'm prepared actually to go. Thank you. So I'll
Mr. McKinnon for 5 minutes.
Thank you. So as a U of A alumnus myself, though that was much closer to the dawn of time, I'm going to direct my questions, at least at the outset, to Mr. Fotang. We've heard, Mr. Fotang, I understand you're undergraduate. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay. So we haven't heard a whole lot from students, particularly undergrads. So, I mean, one of the common themes we've heard from just about everybody is, federal funding is good as far as it goes. It just doesn't go far. And I wonder if you could talk to us about that in terms, certainly, and in any other things that we can do as a federal government to help you succeed and you and your membership, and if it is your goal to make it through and get into grad school. So what other areas can we go into? What do we need to do to help you out?
Thank you for the question. It's always great to see another, U Alberta alumni. And in terms of the things that, can be done to support undergraduate students, as I mentioned before, like the doubling of the Canada Student Grant is huge in supports. The average rate of tuition for domestic students right now is at about $6,580, and the grant being doubled from $3,000 to $6,000 was immense. And I've heard stories from our students tell us that they had maybe a family member who was a primary supporter who passed away, and that grant was the difference between being able to stay in school and continue learning versus having to drop out. So that's one way. We've had some really great conversations here about the importance of funding and supporting student mental health, and I'd be happy to follow up with the committee on some of those strategies. And the other thing is looking at supports for even Indigenous learners. Some of the successes we've seen here at the U of A is having transition year programs for Indigenous students. When they move to the city, it can be a huge process, and having that funding that is able to support them and integrate them into the post-secondary experience is important.
Thanks. What about programs such as Canada Summer Jobs to help you get through the undergraduate years? Do you find them significant, helpful?
Yes, the Canada Summer Jobs Program are also other initiatives that have been very beneficial to students. Like if you've got the awards, you've got the scholarships, but even if you can get that work experience, it's especially degree relevant, and get paid doing it, and that uses to cover those other sorts of costs for education, like your textbooks. Those go a really long way too.
Yeah. So, is there anything we can do to help undergrads to find jobs with private industry to help pay the bills as they get through? And what can we do to encourage private industry to step up as well?
Some of the things that can be done is having those programs like you mentioned, Canada Summer Jobs, or like using things through MyTax that provide those internship experiences, and also just promoting that so students are aware of the other opportunities that they can utilize to support themselves while they're in university or college or in their polytechnics.
Okay, so but things like grants and bursaries as well, and scholarships, we need more of those. We need. Do you have any idea of the level of support we should be looking at to help undergraduates get through and succeed and get on hopefully to grad school?
Do you mean like to clarify like a specific number, or in terms of?
Fill in the blanks, however you think best, right?
Like I said, I think one of the most current and best things that that can be done right now is, again, with that Canada Student Grant that was doubled from $3,000 to $6,000, and that's supposed to come to an end at the 2022-23 year, and then it's supposed to go back to the $3,000 level. So if we can maintain that doubling, I think, like I said, again, that goes a huge way in terms of supports for students.
Yeah. Is there anything we can do to encourage students, graduates, to actually go on and start up in graduate school?
Back to why we're here, and it's talking about investing in those scholarships, as I mentioned. Like, that's the best incentive to know that you can have that ability to pursue your research and have the supports that you need, and you're not scrambling and in a panic and overwhelmed to just trying to find the money you need to just stay in school.
All right, thank you. I see the yellow card, and I think I will cede my time back to the committee, and I would like actually to thank all of the witnesses for their time today.
Thank you.
Ron, thank you. Mr. McKinnon, thank you so very much for doing that. I would like to give a minute to each of Madame Vignola and to Mr. Cannings. A minute each, please.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fotang, quite quickly, you'll probably have to send me some answer in writing, but I'd like your opinion on two subjects. The Quebec Union of Students of Quebec suggested when they appeared that there should be a student representative on the Tri-Council meetings. Secondly, a fair majority of the students said that there were no super scholarships. They're just all standardized. What do you think of that? Should they be scaled up? So thank you very much, all witnesses, for your attendance today. Thank you.
Thank you. On the note of the super scholarships,
Mr. Fotang, I'm sorry. I think that Madame Vignola would like that in writing. And if we could, I didn't make that clear. I apologize. And we will go to Mr. Cannings for a minute.
Well, I would like to stay with Mr. Fotang and just ask him very quickly about what his thoughts on tuition fees and loans and, interest forgiveness on loans. What does he think that the most important benefit to undergrads? Mr. McKinnon took most of my questions, but just to stick with that, in the student loans and tuition fees, what can we do to help?
I think Cass's position is that having those needs-based, forms of financial aid that, let you go and educate and attend university while graduating and reducing your debt burden are huge. Those kinds of things, knowing that you can leave and hopefully start a business or start a family with less, debt holding you back is important. And that's kind of how we've seen it, and understanding that from the federal perspective, providing some of those supports, again, in investments in, research scholarships or through the grants or through a mental health strategy, these are some of the things that can help alleviate that burden that students are facing.
Mr. Fotang, thank you. I'd like to thank all our witnesses. You have been so gracious with your time, your effort, your expertise, and we know all of you have been impacted by COVID-19 and those that you serve. And we want to recognize your service. So thank you to you all. We hope you've had a good experience, and we hope you'll continue to engage with this committee. We'll say good night and thank you. Suspended.
you.